I've been thinking about the word sober. It's used a lot in the word, it's used a lot by Paul. He talks about leaders being sober-minded. He talks about all of us being sober-minded. He talks about us being people of the light and of the day and not of the night, and that we need to be awake and alert and vigilant and sober-minded. First Peter, in Peter's letters, he speaks about being sober-minded and vigilant because the enemy is prowling around like a roaring lion. So I was thinking about the meaning of this word sober. It can have a connotation of being somber or serious, but that's not at all what being sober-minded actually means. To be sober-minded means, in a nutshell, to be constantly being intoxicated with the wine of God's presence, with the Spirit of God, with the very living presence of God. And so in the Greek meaning of the word sober-minded actually means to be in your right mind, which means to be in the mind of Christ. And the mind of Christ is full of the love of God, it's full of the truth. And so it means to abide in love. It means, as Jesus said, stay in my love. Well, that's what it means to be sober-minded, to stay in the love God has for you, to stay in that reality that you are so loved, to abide in that unconditional love, to abide in the presence of that love, to experience the love of God for you, is to stay in a sober-mindedness. It means to stay in the truth. It means to abide in the reality of who we have become, of the glorious, rich treasure of Christ that's on the inside of us, the new nature, the very nature of God Himself in us. It means to stay in the truth that we are sons of God and that we are light. And it means to stay in the truth that is so sharp and true. In fact, the more intoxicated that we are and overflowing with the Holy Spirit's presence, the more the Word comes out of us sharp, the more the rivers of living water of the truth will flow freely out of us, the more sharp and clear that Word will be, the more revelation you receive when you're intoxicated. And when you're intoxicated, you also show forth the fruit of the Spirit, which is to be self-controlled, which is to walk in humility, which is not to be deceived by the enemy at all. The more intoxicated you are, the more clear things are, so that you are able to step over the lies of the enemy and give him no room whatsoever. And so, to be sober-minded means to be fully infused with the Spirit, as Acts chapter 13 verse 52 says, and the disciples were constantly being diffused throughout all their being, throughout all their bodies, with joy and with the Holy Spirit. And Ephesians chapter 5 verse 18, do not be drunk with wine, but be constantly being filled and flooded with the Holy Spirit. So the next time you read about being sober-minded, recognize it means to stay intoxicated. And to be sober-minded does not mean to not be intoxicated with the wine of the Spirit of God.